Hello and welcome to highlights of the 1994 Brazilian Grand Prix, brought to you by Mircoprose and GP2Joey. It's the start of a new season in Formula 1, and that means we are in for yet another year of fantastic racing and drama as we get underway around the bumpy Interlagos circuit in Sao Paulo. Gone are the driver gizmos like active suspension, traction control and ABS brakes, and refuelling returns after 11 years with the aim to make the racing even more intense. We also see the introduction of a new point system, giving an extra point for pole position, fastest lap in the race, and the top 10 drivers now getting World Championship points instead of only 6. Race winners will now get 20 points instead of 10, second will now score 15 instead of 6, third place will get 14 points instead of 4, and fourth will score 10 points, down to 1 point for 10th place. So the emphasis on finishing races is even more critical this year, and it should open up the championship, and with more points available, the smaller teams can grab their share of the cash they all crave in the Constructors' Championship. In the news leading up to the race, Zach Speed was saved from oblivion at the 11th hour by a German business consortium, and the team immediately confirmed Michael Bartels would return to the sport after a year out, replacing Koi Hattori, who lost the seat following original engine supplier Yamaha pulling out last month, with customer Ford engines then announced for the season as replacement power plants. Meantime, at the front, Michael Schumacher was confident he and his Benetton team could start the year strongly, whilst defending champion Ayrton Senna vowed to push for the win in front of his adoring home fans. As ever, Friday morning's 30-minute pre-qualifying session was a close battle as the 12 drivers from 6 teams fought it out before the 3 fastest team averages were calculated to see which 3 would progress further into the race weekend. In the end, it was the Andretti Lotus of Gilles de Ferran who was fastest, with teammate and owner-driver Michael Andretti 5th, as only half a second covered the top 6. They were ultimately joined by Pacific and Zach Speed, who shocked many with their speed, having failed to take part in most of winter testing, whilst LaRousse, Simtech and Bravo F1 were forced to head home early. Friday afternoon's first qualifying session was dramatic, with the whole of the 100,000 strong Interlagos crowd erupting as their hero Senna went to the top of the timing screens early in the Williams Renault. As it soon became clear the midfield battle was going to be a close one, with the Sauber of Leto impressing. With 10 minutes to go, Schumacher brought out the groans from the crowd as the German usurped Senna's time and duly claimed provisional pole by a mere 0.79 seconds, with Senna's teammate Damon Hill taking third, ahead of Schumacher's teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen in fourth. Afterwards, Schumacher declared himself happy he and Benetton had hit the ground running, as Senna said there was no concerns in the Williams pit and that he was in a good place to fight the German. Saturday's second qualifying session was intense, as all the drivers fought to find better setups to improve their lap times from Friday, and whilst Davis went quicker, he was ultimately unable to do enough to move up the grid. Teammate Gerhard Berger was also able to improve, yet Schumacher failed to go faster, which left the door open for Senna to try and beat his German rival. With only a few minutes to go, Interlagos erupted as the Brazilian pushed his Williams for all it was worth, yet he was ultimately unable to beat the Benetton. And so it was Schumacher claimed pole position ahead of Senna by less than a tenth of a second, with Hill in third and the German's countryman and Benetton teammate Frentzen a decent fourth, with Davis taking 5th in the Ferrari ahead of Alain Prost in 6th, whilst at the back it was the Pacific of rookie Ukio Katayama and the Zach Speed of Stefano Modena, who unfortunately failed to qualify. Afterwards, Schumacher was understandably delighted, but was keeping his feet on the ground, with Senna still the favourite in his opinion, whilst the Brazilian himself remained hopeful that come race day his car would be stronger, whilst Hill admitted he was happy enough with third in the second Williams, and Davis vowed to do all he could to take the win for himself and Ferrari. So it's Schumacher and Senna on the front row, with Damon Hill and Heinz-Harald Frentzen on row 2. Row 3 is Joey Davis and Alain Prost. Row 4 is Mika Häkkinen and Jean Alesi. Row 5 is Rubens Barrichello and Eddie Irvine in the two Jordans. Row 6 is Johnny Herbert and Carl Vendinger. Row 7 is JJ Leto and Martin Brundle. Row 8 is Olivier Parnis, the rookie, and Gerhard Berger. Row 9 is Jos Verstappen and Derek Warwick. Row 10 is Bernd Schneider and Michele Alboreto. Row 11 is Christian Fittipaldi and Pierre-Luigi Martini. Row 12 is Gilles de Ferran and Mika Salo. And at the back it's Michael Bartels and Michael Andretti. It's the start of the 1994 Formula 1 season as the red lights come on, the engine revs rise, and the Brazilian Grand Prix is go! Schumacher bogs down from the pole position and Senna goes through to the tremendous cheers of the crowd as into the first corner it's Senna ahead of Schumacher with Prost into third. Hill drops down to fourth. It's Frentzen fifth. Davis is sixth. It's Hakkinen seventh. Herbert eighth as they power out of the third corner. On the way down to turn four it's Senna with Schumacher looking to make a move on the inside and he's through. Schumacher goes through into the lead. Senna drops into second place. Fantastic stuff.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that Schumacher took Senna completely by surprise there. Fantastic opportunistic move there from Michael Schumacher to take the lead in the Benetton. And Senna already falling back. This could be quite an exciting opening Grand Prix.
It most certainly could, because Prost has now got his gearbox and his rear view mirrors full of Damon Hill's Williams. Davis is up into fifth, so Davis has gone past Heinz-Harald Frentzen unsighted by us. Hakkinen is still seventh. It's Herbert in eighth. And Lacey ninth and Carl Vendinger in the Sauber is 10th. And let's not forget that the rule changes this year. They promote the top 10 drivers into race playing points position finishes and not the top 6, as Schumacher is already 8/10 of a second in the lead. But the big question is going to be what sort of fuel strategies is everybody running as Damon Hill looks to make a move on Prost.
Yes, Damon Hill up the inside of the Frenchman and Hill up into third position there. So a textbook pass there from Damon Hill as he rounds out and he tries to chase after his teammate Ayrton Senna. But a fantastic pass there from Damon Hill. And let's look at the replay of the start from Joey Davis from 5th place on the grid. It's interesting to see what kind of a start he gets, and he gets bogged down a little bit in first gear there, unable to go through on the left-hand side because Prost is through on the left, blocking the way there. Davis trying to find room. Cannot get through there, has to follow in behind Frentzen's Benetton and Damon Hill's Williams. And Davis obviously gets good traction out of the corner, and there it is there. Frentzen a little bit hesitant on the right pedal, gives Davis the opportunity to go through, takes the racing line. As you can see, Schumacher pouncing on Ayrton Senna from quite far back.
And look at this. This is Senna and Hill, with Schumacher now 1.7 seconds up in the lead. Is Senna struggling already with his car? Damon Hill looks like he's going to go through, and he does. So Damon Hill, he's up into second position ahead of Ayrton Senna, who was one of the favourites for this race. But already the Brazilian is dropping back. He's gone from first to second to third. Prost is still fourth with Davis in fifth. It's Heinz-Harald Frentzen in sixth. Hakkinen in seventh, and this is Martin Brundle battling JJ Leto over 13th position.
Yes, it's quite interesting to see how close the field really is this year, because both McLaren and Sauber
and Davis is pulling off in the Ferrari. Davis is stricken with a problem. I suspect that could be transmission or his engine. There's no smoke out of the engine, so surely it's got to be a transmission failure for the 1991 world champion.
Yes, quite extraordinary scenes there. A very early retirement there from Joey Davis, with Senna already 7.7 seconds further back on lap 12 from Michael Schumacher, and Damon Hill in fourth position. And we have to question what sort of strategies everybody is running this weekend, because let's not forget the refuelling is allowed this year. Some drivers could be opting for a single stop, some could be opting for 2, and there is even the possibility of most people opting for 3. But I suspect that most of them will be stopping twice, and it's going to be quite interesting to see what pans out over the next few laps.
As Vendinger, he's up into 9th position now as a consequence of Davis's retirement, and Schumacher's got the lead up to 5.2 seconds. Fantastic performance from Schumacher. It's quite extraordinary to think that in the winter testing, Benetton were very much hitting the ground running and Williams have been struggling. And it seems to have transpired into the race as well, because Alain Prost, he's 12.6 seconds further back with Frentzen, Schumacher's teammate, 15.2 seconds further down the road.
And there's Michael Andretti in 24th position. It's so good to see the Lotus name is still going, albeit in the guise of the Andretti squad, but already they're way down in 24th position. But my goodness me, have they got the ambition and the character and the finance to push that team further up the grid. And I don't think it's going to be very long before we see the name Andretti into the midfield. And let's hope that we do see that, because Michael Andretti has been a fantastic mainstay of the sport as Schumacher comes in and Hill comes in. So both race leaders are in on lap 24. Senna ups to stay out. It's Hill and Schumacher into the pits. And Alain Prost is in. So Prost is in the Ligier, but we're on board with his teammate Sean Lacey. And there's Mika Häkkinen. So Häkkinen performing very well in McLaren's first race with the Ford power engine. He's up into third position there, so a quite gallant effort from Mika Häkkinen. But with Schumacher and Damon Hill now out of the pits, they are very much going to be trying to see if they can close up the gap to Ayrton Senna, because we normally expect a gap of at least 22 seconds as Schumacher looks to try and get his way past around one of the back markers there, and it looks like he successfully negotiated it. But we're going to be waiting to see what Ayrton Senna can do in terms of when he stops for his fuel and tyres. But what's Schumacher going to be able to do? Is he going to be able to close up the gap? He certainly will. He's 11.4 seconds to the good, and Senna has still not come in, and he's in. So Senna comes into the pits. Fri&Sat elects to stay out, but is Senna going to drop? How far back behind Schumacher? And is he going to be dropping behind his teammate Damon Hill? I certainly think he will, as Häkkinen comes in. So Senna's made his first stop, Schumacher's made his first stop, Hill's made his first, and so has Fri&Sat. Because Fri&Sat is into the pits as we see Schumacher going past Eric Warwick in the Brabham for 21st position. Vendinger comes into the pits in 6th position. But Schumacher's got a 9.4 second lead over Damon Hill, and he is cruising up in front as Gilles de Ferran's battling with what looks like one of the Pacific cars, with Senna trying to navigate his way past them. And this is very much going to be a race that is going to boil down to how much you can navigate your way around the traffic today, because the mid-section of the lap is very tricky, and Senna's going to try and pass his way around Mika Salo, and he's through. So Senna goes through, but he's 5 seconds up behind Damon Hill, and that's Herbert. Herbert pulling off in the Tyrrell. An absolute disaster there for Johnny Herbert and for Tyrrell, and that's Mika Salo slowing. My goodness me, so Johnny Herbert pulling over in the Tyrrell and Mika Salo. A shame for both Tyrrell and for Pacific there, because both teams were very much hoping to get a race finish and potentially a points finish if they could have got into the top 10. But in 9th position it's Eddie Irvine, and now Martin Brundle is up into 10th position in the second McLaren with his teammate Mika Häkkinen. I'm not even sure where Mika Häkkinen is, because he seems to have disappeared. And Barrichello! That's Barrichello and Vendinger. Vendinger goes through, so Vendinger is up into 7th position. Yes, we're not sure what's happened to Mika Häkkinen. Perhaps he might have had an off somewhere, unseen by the TV cameras. But Schumacher's now 11.5 seconds to the good on lap 40. Senna, he's 4.2 seconds behind Damon Hill. And that's Vendinger slowing on the pit straight. Vendinger with flames billowing out of the back of his Sauber. My goodness me, yet another retirement as Carl Vendinger and the Sauber team, their reliability, which was absolutely abysmal in 1993, doesn't seem to have gotten any better in 1994. Yeah, it's a terrible shame there for the Sauber team, because I think that most people were expecting them to get a decent race finish this weekend. But that's a shame for him. And that's Leto off! So JJ Leto spin from 13th position. Leto inexplicably spins his Sauber. His teammate Vendinger retires, and JJ Leto just spins in sympathy. Fantastic stuff! Yes, quite unlike JJ Leto there to lose the back end, as we see Martin Brundle and Mika Häkkinen in the two McLarens now. They're up into 9th and 10th position, with the two Jordans of Rubens Barrichello and Eddie Irvine just up in front of them. As we ride on board with Heinz-Harald Fri&Sat, who almost loses it. My goodness me, he's really pushing that Benetton as much as he can to try and close up the gap to Ayrton Senna. But is he going to be able to do anything about it? I very much doubt so. But Schumacher's up in front still. He's 13 seconds ahead of Damon Hill. It's Senna in 3rd, Fri&Sat is 4th, Prost is dropped down to 5th, with Sean Lacey in 6th, as we see Barrichello and Häkkinen. Is Häkkinen going through? He's through! So Häkkinen goes through up into 7th position. Barrichello drops down into 8th, with Irvine in 9th, and Brundle in 10th, as we see Sean Lacey negotiating, and Schumacher is in! So Schumacher is into the pit for the second time. Yes, Schumacher into the pits, and we very much think that this will be the final pit stop for the German, which also enables Damon Hill to go into the lead, and he's 4.1 seconds now ahead of Ayrton Senna, and I'm pretty sure that Senna is really struggling with the performance of his Williams over the bumps of Interlagos, as Verstappen comes into the pits in 13th position. Yes, Senna, he seems to be really struggling. He cannot match his teammates' pace, because there's Damon Hill, he's still in the lead, but what we want to see is how far back Schumacher is. He's 13.3 seconds further back, and that means that when Hill pits and when Senna pits, both of them will fall back behind Schumacher in line, and Schumacher is going to have a fairly easy run of it towards the end of the race. But Schumacher's into the pits! My goodness me! He's got a loose rear wheel! Schumacher's into the pits! An unscheduled stop, a third stop, and that is going to drop him down the order. Sensational scenes here in Interlagos as Schumacher falls back. And are we going to see the dream scenario of Ayrton Senna possibly beating Damon Hill? Will Williams give Hill the team order to let Senna through to claim what would be an historic victory as Fittipaldi, the young Brazilian, almost loses it over the curbing? Will we see Ayrton Senna being able to be gifted perhaps the race victory here in Interlagos? As Andretti comes into the pit, Senna's yet to make his final stop. It's Hill in fourth, but Schumacher is down in sixth position. He's got fresh tyres on. Is he going to be able to close up the gap now as we see Heinz-Harald Frentzen in second position, and Senna's into the pits? Yes, Ayrton Senna into the pits there. Very good stop on the marks. Fantastic wipe of the visor from the chief mechanic. What sort of stop is it going to be as they put the tyres on? The fuel goes in. It's 10.1 seconds. I don't think that's going to be quick enough. I think Damon Hill is going to emerge, and he does. Damon Hill. I think Hill's taken the lead from Senna. And Schumacher is up into third position, but he's 20 seconds further back with 20 laps to go. Is Schumacher going to be able to close the gap on the two Williamses ahead of him, with Hill only 3.7 seconds? And I've got to think that Patrick Head is going to put in the call to Damon Hill to allow Ayrton Senna to come through. But my goodness me, Michael Schumacher is catching the pair of them at quite a rate of knots now. The gap is down to 9.8 seconds. He's catching the two Williams' hand over fist right now. And Schumacher is absolutely flying as he smashes the lap record. It's Sean Alesi in ninth position battling with Rubens Barrichello. Surely he's going to be too far back to do anything about that. And Lord, yes, and you could just see there he was just too far back. But Senna! He's 1.4 seconds behind Damon Hill. I think that Damon Hill may very well have been given the hurry up to let Ayrton Senna through before Michael Schumacher catches them, because the gap is down to 8.3 seconds. Yes, well, funnily enough, we've just had it confirmed to us that no such request from the Williams team has actually come in to Damon Hill. Ayrton Senna wants to win this race on merit, and he's certainly trying all he can to close the gap down. But it's 1.7 seconds now to Damon Hill, and I'm pretty sure that Damon Hill won't want to give up the race win, and Senna most certainly will not want it handed to him. He's going to fight his British teammate to see if he can actually close the gap up. But will Damon Hill be able to pull away from Senna? Because Senna is closing. It's all going to be dependent on how they navigate the traffic in the closing laps. Because Schumacher, he's 8.5 seconds, he's fallen a little bit back. And there is the German. He's only 8.5 seconds further back. Has he worn out his tyres? Has he worn them out completely? Yes, this is going to be interesting now, because Schumacher, I think that he may very well have cooked his tyres too much, and now he's falling back. Damon Hill still 1.7 seconds in the lead, but it's going to be absolutely crucial how they navigate the final few laps now, because they're coming up to the back markers, and Damon Hill is coming up behind what looks like JJ Leto's Sauber. And Hill's going to have to try and fight his way past, because this is the twisty part of the circuit, and Damon Hill is certainly going to lose time. If he's unable to get past the Sauber, he's going to try it around the outside. Is Leto going to give him room? Senna's 1.9 seconds further back at the last checkpoint. Hill manages to get past, but what's the gap to Senna going to be? We're on board with Senna. It certainly looks a little bit closer. Yes, it's 1.3 seconds, so Senna's closed up 0.6 of a second now. And is he going to be able to use the straight all the way up to the first corner to see if Senna can close up the gap. This is fantastic stuff. It's only 1.3 seconds between the top two, and Schumacher has closed up now. It's 6.4 seconds courtesy of both the Williamses trying to navigate the back markers. Schumacher's got a clear track in front of him, and he's most certainly using it to full advantage as Verstappen pulls over in the Brabham. My goodness, Verstappen pulls over from 14th position. He will be heartbroken. He's out of the Grand Prix. Jos Verstappen, the rookie, he's out as Hill comes through with only 2 laps to go. He's got one of the Andretti cars in front of him. He needs to try and pass him as quickly as he can, with Senna 1.6 seconds further back, and he's through. So Hill goes through, a little unorthodox, but he's through. And that means that Senna's now got to try and find his way past the Andretti as well. Yes, it's going to be interesting to see if Senna can get past, because Schumacher, he's only 4.7 seconds. There's Schumacher in the background. He's going to pass the other Andretti, I've absolutely no doubt. And Senna, he can't get through. So Ayrton Senna now surely has lost any chance he had of catching Damon Hill, despite Hill having one of the Zach Speed Fords in front of him. It certainly looks as though Damon Hill could very well be on the way to winning this Grand Prix, unless by some miracle something happens in front of him. And Senna's going to be pushing for all he possibly can, but that Andretti here will be screaming at him to get out of the way, and Senna's going to try and pass him around the outside, and he gets through, but Hill's already through as Senna goes through, but he locks up, loses the rears, and he loses out on the track, and Damon Hill's now, he's got a 2.3 second lead. Fantastic finish to the Grand Prix as Hill powers up the hill. He's across the line surely now as he gets under the gearbox of the Zach Speed, and Damon Hill crosses the line to win the opening race of the season. Damon Hill wins the Brazilian Grand Prix in terrific style, 2.3 seconds ahead of Senna, with Schumacher taking an unlikely third. Fantastic stuff! Groans from the crowd and cheers for someone, but Damon Hill, fantastic! Well, the 1994 season has certainly started with a bang, and Damon Hill's incredible win served to underline that for the moment there are no team orders at Williams, with Senna clearly struggling with a poor handling car and unable ultimately to match his teammates' pace, while Schumacher showed he had the speed to win in his Benetton and should have for sure, but the German's misfortune in having a wheel work loose following his final pit stop put pay to that on his way to third place. Fri&Sat was a decent fourth in the other Benetton, ahead of Prost in the Lee shape, with McLaren's Hakkinen 6th, ahead of Alesi in 7th, the 2 Jordans of Irvine and Barrichello in 8th and 9th, with the final point for 10th going to Brundle in the other McLaren, as an impressive 19 out of 26 drivers saw the checkered flag, while Schumacher, having already earned a bonus point for the pole, claimed another with the fastest lap. On the podium, Hill joyously sprayed the champagne and revelled in an unexpected victory, whilst the forlorn-looking Senna moaned about the handling of his car, which he said had just got worse as the race progressed, and Schumacher rued his lost win, but remained resolute that he and Benetton win and lose together. Later on, it emerged that Hill had indeed been asked by Williams to let Senna through, but the Briton defended himself in the face of criticism from the team, which Senna was unhappy about himself after admitting he too went against the team wishes, as he didn't want the win handed to him on a plate. None of this impressed boss Patrick Head, who then inadvertently admitted off air in an interview that he was not impressed by the behaviour of his 2 drivers, and in particular of Hill. As the Williams story grew, McLaren boss Ron Dennis made his intentions clear and was quick to remind Senna of simpler times, when the Brazilian drove for him a few years ago, and that he should consider coming home for next year. It all means that with 20 points for the win, Hill leaves Interlagos in the lead of the Drivers' Championship by 5 points from Senna, with Schumacher 1 point further back in third, with Fri&Sat 4th on 10 points and Prost in 5th on 8. After their unlikely 1-2 finish, Williams scored 35 points and now hold an 11-point lead over Benetton in the Constructors' standings, with Ligier Prost 3rd on 12 points, ahead of McLaren and Jordan down in 5th. Next up, we venture over to the Far East and the tight and twisty all-new Aida circuit for round 2. But will Senna strike back, or will the Benetton of Schumacher capitalise on his obvious speed and claim the win he should have got this weekend? As ever, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time for the second round of the 1994 Formula 1 World Championship and the Pacific Grand Prix.